Hello and welcome to the Outside the Cockpit post-race show for not the Monaco Grand Prix, no, the Baku Grand Prix, sorry.
Azerbaijan Grand
Azerbaijan.
Prix.
Yeah, Azerbaijan
Was
Grand
what,
Prix.
race week 6 or race week 7 in the
Yes,
season?
indeed.
You can say it's a reverse Monaco GP. You know, depending how just your feelings about it last week.
It's the opposite.
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
We had a fun one.
Yes, indeed. Alrighty, let's get right into it. Let's give our 3-word race review. Just 3 words if you could recap the race, what it was.
I'm gonna keep it very, very simple here. I'm gonna start off ham bot ver. Those are the 3 words that you can talk about in this Grand Prix because Hamilton made a mistake, Bottas was a no-show, and Verstappen very unlucky in the end. Obviously, other notable drivers were in this Grand Prix, but if those are the 3 that we've been talking about for like the past 3 years, ham bot ver, none of them with points today, and that was absolutely insane.
What about you, Ming? What are your thoughts? What are your 3?
I got 3 words. I don't know if this counted words, but Per, Rao, and Lee. There you go. It's most important words that's basically like decide the fates of a lot of drivers this weekend.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. My 3 words are the comeback kids. 3 drivers who've hit the podium and like they've had pretty rough careers. They've had a pretty rough couple of years. Just to see all 3 of them go on the podium was really something special.
Yeah, definitely. For me, my 3-word race review would be probably something to do with Max, I guess, because I'm a Max Verstappen fan. So just pain, you know? Yeah, just because honestly, after I saw that, like when that happened, I was so mad and just like I was filled with different emotions. But then when I saw Hamilton crash out, I was like, yes. It was like at least no one's going to score points in the leaders, which was obviously unfortunate. I mean, it was great to see for Perez and stuff, and that was huge because that's like the difference now, like talking about with having that second driver, because now that Red Bull has that, it's like, okay, you know what, if Max Verstappen has a bad day, whatever it is, like, you know, we can still score some points and stuff, and Bottas just didn't have a great day. That's really sucked for Mercedes because they weren't able to score any points to really, you know, fight with Red Bull, because now Red Bull has a fair advantage in the Constructors' Championship as well. Yeah, moving on to our next topic about Pirelli. I guess you would say Pirelli didn't have the best day in the office, but of course we can discuss was Pirelli to blame for that, or was that on just the debris? Because that's what Pirelli did. Pirelli put the blame on the debris from the track. Let's start with you, Julian. What are your thoughts on this? Because I know you've got some serious thoughts on this.
So this goes in a bunch of different directions because it just comes down to how much was Pirelli's fault. Because at the start of the weekend, if you want to compare the past Baku Grand Prix, past races that we've had here in Azerbaijan, they run harder compounds in general. It's a street circuit. It's high speed. They try running harder compounds because, the degradation of the tires is a lot higher than on tracks like Monaco. But in the past years, almost no one has sat down to utilize the hard tires, the hard compound, which we saw so many people switch to in their second stint since it was now a softer compound of tire. And, it does end up coming down to this entire aspect solely because of the fact that Pirelli is to blame. They made that change, but they also did put out a warning on Friday, and they did make a mandatory rule change. They changed the PSI of the tires from 19 to 20. They practically anticipated. They said, we're going to have some tire problems this weekend, most likely, and so it would be best for us to be able to change the PSI. Tires would last more. But, in the end, we still saw 2 major tire failures, one being Lance Stroll's and one of them being Max Verstappen's, that if you saw it like live, you could say like, oh, how did they lose control there? But if you see the onboard camera from beforehand, they were going down the straight. You can see them start struggling with the wheel, mainly because of the puncture. And when you're going over 200 miles an hour down a straight line into a hard braking zone, if you have a tire just go off on you, it doesn't matter how talented you are or how good you are at controlling the car, you're going around in a circle, and there's nothing that you can do about it. And that's tough for Max Verstappen. It ruined his race. It's tough for Lance Stroll. It ruined his race. But Pirelli, in the end, the move that they made to make the compound softer this weekend compared to past weekends, it was made in an effort to try to make it more exciting because you'd have to see more strategy. And even though we didn't see as much strategy, you can say that it was way more entertaining this weekend than in past weekends that we've had in Baku.
Definitely, for sure. What are your thoughts, TJ, on this?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, like you said, I mean, you can clearly see on screen that, Verstappen was not surprised that they would blame debris. And even his dad said that it wasn't a surprise. I saw that on Twitter. His dad said that, that they're going to blame debris. But my question is, you can, increase the softness of the tires, but the two crashes that we saw, I mean, with Stroll and Verstappen, I mean, they were at really, really high speeds, like Julian alluded to, over 200 mph down the straight. But that does sort of, in my mind, it sort of does compromise the safety aspect of it. I mean, they're going down one of the fastest sections on the calendar, and if a puncture just blows a tire up, you can clearly see from the onboard, both of them tried to countersteer and then they just lost it. So, and they were both pretty shaken up after the crash. So, I mean, we've seen examples in recent races and years of drivers getting out of pretty bad crashes and then, and because the tire blew up. So, but it does sort of beg the question, at what point does safety have to come back into the issue? Because Verstappen did go straight to the medical center after his crash, and then he was able to see Checo on the podium. But I mean, it does sort of put that back in the safety aspect back into focus, at least for me.
Mm-hmm, no, 100%. That's a great point, TJ.
Yeah. If I can add one more thing to this aspect as well, it is very crazy about how the tire situation has worked in F1 for the past years. And Pirelli actually a couple of years ago, because of severe blowouts that they had a couple seasons ago, they changed the structure of the tires to where the point where the tires meet in the corners wasn't around the steel band anymore, but it became a combination of nylon and a bunch of other materials that they had to try to keep the tires together. And it was a hot day at Baku. And as we know, tires, you can't predict it in the end. They can do everything they can. They can raise the PSIs and whatnot. But when you're going at those speeds and track that has a lot of G-forces and the slight kinks that they have down the straights from time to time, all you need is one tire to just hit a bump in a certain way, and you might see a rip in it. It was very, very different to the tire failures we saw last year in Silverstone, because last year in Silverstone, those were entire tire failures. Those were entirely on Pirellis for running way too soft tires. And this time around, you can see Pirelli tried avoiding it, and you can see the difference in the tire failures from Silverstone to this week. They were very, very different types, but either way, Pirelli's going to have to take a look at that. And we might actually see, because of the new regulations, we might see Pirelli even analyze even further how they're going to construct the tires for next year's rule changes.
Yes, indeed. Any thoughts on this, Ming?
Well, I mean, we've seen many times. I mean, as Julian said, they made an exciting race. Definitely, yes, they made a really exciting race. But I definitely think that I also agree with everyone is that it's something that Pirelli will have to do their homework on about. But I don't think that it's necessarily anyone's fault. I think that the patterns we see with Lance Stroll and Max Verstappen with the left rear tire really easy. Make it easy to point fingers for sure. But I mean, also remember in Silverstone, there's 3 cars, tires just explode at the same time. So I definitely think that there may be reasons that we can discuss more about that. But I personally think that it's just kind of difficult. Yeah, sometimes Max Verstappen can drive almost 40 laps in the Spanish Grand Prix, nothing happened, and then this could happen. So it adds to the unpredictability, but I think that it definitely helps with Pirelli on how to approach the tire every year. But I mean, hey, it's not the US Grand Prix 2005, right?
Yes, indeed. That's for sure. I would say, honestly, even being Max Verstappen, I don't think it's really all on Pirelli. I mean, there's some to blame there and stuff, but it's when you think about it, it's okay, maybe I guess the debris from Lance Stroll's crash, that was still on the track. But again, marshals do a great job cleaning up all the debris. They make sure it's fully, completely safe with anything. So I don't think that can really, I'm not saying there could be debris on the track. There could be small bits and stuff that easily could be missed that could cause a puncture on the tire. Again, it was just a split-second thing that happened, and that's really much. Yeah, Pirelli could do some research as well. What's interesting as well is that, of course, there's the 18-inch prototype tires that are coming out, I believe, possibly for 2022, which they're testing and stuff. So it's going to be interesting. Expecting to. So that's going to be interesting to see how that will work and stuff, and how they're going to do some work around that. But let's move on into our next topic about the resurgence of Sebastian Vettel. The legend obviously won 4 championships with Red Bull, went to Ferrari for a bit, now is at Aston Martin, and he got his first podium with Aston Martin. Let's start with you, TJ. What are your thoughts on the resurgence of Vettel and how he's kind of made his way back up the podium?
Well, when I first started watching Formula One, Vettel was the guy at Ferrari, and that's why his success made me a big Ferrari fan. And obviously now he's left, and he's now at Aston. So, it obviously wasn't the best start for him at Aston, but it generally takes time for any driver to get acclimatized with a new team. We saw that with Sergio Perez at Red Bull. We've seen that with Daniel Ricciardo at McLaren. He's got over that sort of beginner's sort of woes, if you will. He had a great outing last time at Monaco. He's hit the podium this time at Baku, and he was leading the race at one point. Yes, that's because he didn't pit, because they went longer. Both Astons went longer, but it's definitely great to see that, and there were people writing him off. I also wrote him off after his dreadful final year at Ferrari last year. A lot of people were writing him off, and he's clearly got something going. He might very well be back to the Sebastian Vettel we know.
Exactly. What are your thoughts on this, Julian?
Well, it's interesting, and all around, it's just an all-around experience for everyone that's watching. We've seen Vettel come from a young gunner at Toro Rosso, got his crazy win at Monza. You can see the potential to him doing very well at Red Bull, to him dominating at Red Bull, moved to Ferrari. He's had quite a career in general, and now he's getting one of the most recognizable names in motorsport, their first ever podium in Formula One. And that's definitely just another thing to add to the Sebastian Vettel story. As TJ mentioned earlier, obviously the Astons were running long. And as much as we hate to say it because we hate seeing people crash, the Lance Stroll crash heavily benefited Sebastian Vettel in the end because it helped him out, able to get some more strategy in the situation. And it definitely helped with the restart. But in general, we've seen a much more confident Sebastian Vettel. Like last year, he was cracking a lot of jokes at Ferrari, but you can tell with the way he was driving, he was openly frustrated with the car. That Ferrari car was basically a boat on wheels. It was very, very tough to manage last season. And especially with the way that they were just blaming him for everything, you can tell that he wasn't in a situation that the team had faith in him anymore. Now at Aston, he's basically in charge of not only mentoring Lance Stroll, who is an up-and-coming driver, but also trying to get the best results out of this car. And you can definitely tell with the way he's driving, he's more aggressive, he's more ballsy, so to say, on the brakes. We got to see some nice sequences of him on restarts. Like everyone talks about the aspect that Lewis Hamilton went straight on and he was side by side with Perez, but what a lot of people don't talk about is the fact that Sebastian Vettel was right alongside them, making it 3 wide before going into the corner. He has his confidence back. And if there's one thing that we all love seeing as fans of the sport, when Sebastian Vettel has confidence, it's just an absolute spectacle to see from time to time. Will we see a race win this season? Who knows? Because it's been very unpredictable. We had 3 different manufacturers on the podium, and only one of them was one that we've prior seen basically this season. And it was of the car that many expected to struggle this year in Sergio Perez, who ended up winning the race for Red Bull. Then we saw Vettel in second for Aston Martin. Then we saw Gasly make a return to the podium. What an amazing season Pierre Gasly's had, by the way. Hats off to him. Mm-hmm. I'm very curious on where his career holds next year because, as we've mentioned several times, with the way Perez is performing, it doesn't seem like Red Bull's going to be looking for a second driver next season. So the question just becomes what spots open up for Pierre Gasly. With the whole situation at Mercedes, it's a long shot, but could we maybe see Pierre Gasly make a jump to the Silver Arrows? At this point, we have no clue because Pierre Gasly is no longer really affiliated with Red Bull. I highly doubt he's going to want to stay another year in AlphaTauri, and Red Bull's going to not want to keep him there because they want to promote their own youth drivers. If you want to look at the ranks right now in F2, there's Daruvala and Yuri Vips, both of them having amazing weekends in Baku. So we're going to see how that turns out for the second seat at AlphaTauri, and it just comes down to what is the future hold for Pierre Gasly. There's the heaviest links have been to Alpine. And I know that this is a Sebastian Vettel segment, but I do have to talk about Pierre Gasly because he's been doing absolute bits the past 2 seasons in a car that many people don't expect the best results out of. It's a team that before Pierre Gasly stepped in, they only had 1 podium ever. And it was that insane race in 2008 at Monza with Sebastian Vettel. At least off the top of my head, I'm not 100% certain, but they've struggled a lot. But in recent memories, Pierre Gasly has dragged results. I believe he has had like 3-4 podiums already with the Alpha Tauri, and he had that win at Monza as well. So, it's been amazing for him. But when it comes to Sebastian Vettel, he's kind of on that arc, on that return arc. We'll see if it continues this season, if Aston continues developing the car, or if they're going to throw everything into the rule changes, and we might see somehow a return of the Vettel of 2011. But we'll have to see how that ends up turning out all around.
Possibly, yeah. Any thoughts on this, Ming?
Yeah, I mean, adding up to Julian on the first part too, you didn't realize when the race restarted if Hamilton didn't like have a breakthrough or like the magic button situation, he would. Perez was going, because when the race restarts, Perez was leaning to the left to fight with Hamilton, but then when he knows he's going to lose a position, he actually goes back to the right to defend with Vettel, because Vettel was going on a mission. He's going to if he's going to lose that position, if Perez is going to lose the second position, he's going to lose the third position if he doesn't defend with Vettel. And but yeah, well, miracles, things happen, and it's just, I think that moment is just like kind of like, like you can see that Vettel is back. And I mean, also another one, if you want to be an earlier, but like before things happen, is when he overtakes Gasly. But yeah, he was on a mission in the last two circuit, and I think you got to give props to Aston Martin, really like get the things together with these two street circuits with really, really good strategies that they've been having. Because I mean, they had questionable strategies in the last few races, and then also questionable actions from Vettel, especially first Bahrain race when everyone's like, why does he just slam on the brake like that? It's kind of like that. But, I feel like, yeah, he's and there's no spins, no Spinala jokes in the last like few GP. Yeah, so I think that it's like he's coming back, and yeah, and sorry for C fan, but like I don't really see he's on a car, like on a F1 car. I see him on a tractor last year, so now he's like in an actual car. It's just feeling like I think he's getting his confidence back, and I'm just happy that the last two street circuits really help him. Hopefully, I think he can keep going being a Singapore Lions, because right now it's just no Singapore GP. Maybe next year is getting better, and he'll win the Singapore GP again. But
we'll see. Yeah, for sure. No, I'd agree with all you guys. I think it's good to see Vettel back up at the podium and back at the top of the grid and stuff. And I was really dying to see a Hamilton versus Vettel battle. Like if they actually had, if Hamilton stayed on the track and they were battling and stuff, for a position, because that would have been good to see and stuff. Little vintage, but yeah, overall, Sebastian Vettel has handled himself really well. He's gotten comfortable with the car, like similar to Sergio Perez, where it's like it's taken a few races to get used to everything, get used to the team, but once you do and stuff, then it's really good. So maybe we'll see, Sergio Perez and also Sebastian Vettel over these next couple of races really provide extra support and stuff as, the number, I guess, I know Sebastian Vettel is really the number one driver there. I guess if Lance Stroll's like dad is like the owner, maybe Lance Stroll is the number one driver, but I don't know really how it works there. But regardless, it's good to see for sure. I guess I kind of perfectly transition into our next topic about the most impressive driver. I feel like I know possibly whoever it is, whose most impressive driver is, but you guys are welcome to share from the weekend.
Okay. I mean, everyone is talking about Vettel, and everyone is talking about, like I've mentioned, Gasly as well. And the other person that everyone's talking about, and it's my most impressive driver of the day, Sergio Perez. He ended up winning the race. Obviously, everyone's going to be attributing it to the fact that Verstappen went out, because Verstappen was dominating it. But one thing that, many people aren't giving Perez credit for, he started sixth, had an amazing first lap, had a great pass. I believe it was on Gasly, or I'm not 100% certain. I think it was on either Gasly or Norris, but he had an absolute stormer, went up to third, and then after the pit stop phases, even with a relatively slow pit stop, he was able to come out right behind Verstappen in front of Hamilton. And everyone talked about his defense towards the end on Vettel, but he held up Lewis Hamilton for like 10 laps on some amazing defensive driving to hold that second position. And then when Verstappen crashed out, it would have been cruel to not see Perez on the top step of the podium in the end. But he had an amazing race. Got to give credit to where credit is due. And, for someone who is in that cursed second Red Bull seat and has had a tough start to the season. Last week in Monaco, we saw an absolute amazing race from him, almost a masterclass, so to say, from Sergio Perez. And then this week, we got to see a win from him, his second win in F1, well-deserved. And I think we might be sensing 2 or 3 more the rest of the season if it keeps going like this. He's getting his confidence, and I have a lot of faith in the Mexican.
I think he broke the curse already. He said he started driving this practice section. He's like, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling this car is awesome. This is the GP, and he did. He won it. It's just it's amazing.
He said it would take 5 races for him to get up to speed, and race 6 he gets a win. So
he was perfect right on that. So he knew,
that's how you cure the second seat curse. Just say I can do it.
you have to call it out at the start of the season. You're like, oh yeah, by 5 you have to set the expectation for yourself. Like Albon should have started off last season. No, yeah, by the 13th race I'm winning. And maybe it would have happened.
Yeah. What? I think the biggest thing with not to talk about the most impressive drivers, but with the whole Red Bull thing, it's just having confidence. But yeah, for in terms of this, my most impressive driver, I would say, even though he did crash out, I think Lance Stroll. I mean, he was running good in 4th. He started 19th as well. So he made up 15 positions. He was running on the hard tires. It seemed like they had a good strategy. He didn't crash out. He could have had a good finish, maybe even a double podium, possibly for Aston Martin if they were lucky, because that was very close to happening, which would have been great to see. So I got to give credit to Lance Stroll, the Canadian boy. I know he gets a lot of hate. I know he gets, just because but he's got skill. He deserves to be in F1. He's showing his skill. And that's, got to show props to him and stuff. So that's my most impressive driver for the weekend.
Yeah, for me, I'm going slightly off the board here. I'm saying Fernando Alonso. He started off in 8th, obviously, but he made the most of that safety car period when Stroll crashed out. He was one of 4 drivers who came in for fresh tires, and then so he clearly got a free pit stop there under the safety car. And then when Verstappen crashed out, that set up the 2-lap shootout. He was starting in 10th at that point, and he made up 4 places in 2 laps in a car that, is decent. We've seen Esteban Ocon get really good results from that Alpine this year, and it seems like it's Fernando Alonso's time now. He's back to his best. This was a throwback performance. Great stuff from him. Made the most of both the safety car period and the restart on the 2-lap shootout. Great drive from him, in my eyes.
Definitely. Any other thoughts or no?
I want to say maybe I'll say congratulations to Mick Schumacher placing P13 over Lewis Hamilton.
yes, over Lewis Hamilton
and Nicolas Latifi too, because he got but P13 for the guy, but he's very sweet. I really like how his chemistry with even with Sebastian Vettel when he's winning as well. But I feel like most impressive drivers agree it's Perez all the way. He has in Monaco has probably the craziest attacking job of the entire GP, and now he has the most craziest defend jobs of the whole GP because there's so many times when Lewis Hamilton is right behind him and he was trying his best to get rid of Lewis Hamilton, and it's no toe, nothing at all. It just keep going on and make that really middle sector is a bit boring, but which is very interesting because of just the dynamic of defending, attacking from both of them. So that was my most impressive driver. And then I can throw in Baku itself and just make a brilliant GP. Well done, Baku. It happen.
Well done, Baku. Well done, Baku. That's a reference to Daniel Ricciardo. So
and just to go back to that point about Mick Schumacher, his 13th place lifts Haas up over Williams in the Constructors' Championship. They're now 9th. Williams are now down back to 10th. So that could be big at the end, come the end of the season.
Yeah, the battle for last place. So
yeah, it's not. There is still some pride in not finishing last. And obviously, there's more money for. Well,
no, that's a big thing as well. Is to quickly talk about is obviously the higher you finish and stuff, the more money you get. So even if you finish one place higher than the other team, you'll get a little bit more money. So that is huge, especially for those lower budget teams, considering Haas is really looking heavily forward into 2022 to develop their car and stuff. So that's going to be huge for them. But that will pretty much do our show for today. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out theintermissionsports.com for more content. And we'll be back in a few weeks with I believe it's Paul Ricard is coming up next for our pre-race show and our post-race show. Have a nice night.